The phone rang at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, right in the middle of my afternoon crossword. After 38 years of marriage, you develop routines. Mine involved black coffee, the daily puzzle, and waiting for Margaret to return from her book club. Retirement had given us this comfortable rhythm, predictable as sunrise. Mr. Richardson? The voice was young, professional, tinged with the artificial cheerfulness of customer service. This is Cassandra from the Venetian Las Vegas. I'm calling to confirm your romantic anniversary suite reservation for this Friday through Sunday. I set down my pen, confusion rippling through me. I'm sorry. There must be some mistake. I didn't book anything in Vegas. A pause. The sound of clicking keys. I have a reservation here under Richardson. Margaret Richardson. The suite was booked 6 weeks ago. Paid in full by. More clicking. A Mr. David Hartley. The name hit me like a physical blow. David Hartley. I hadn't heard that name in 40 years. Not since Margaret and I got married. He'd been her college boyfriend, the one before me, the one she'd supposedly left behind when we fell in love during her graduate program. Sir? Are you still there? Yes, I managed. Can you tell me anything else about this reservation? Well, it's our premier romance package. Champagne, couples massage, dinner reservations at our finest restaurant. It's quite comprehensive. She sounded proud. Should I confirm the reservation? My hand trembled as I gripped the phone. Yes, don't change anything. After I hung up, I sat frozen in my worn leather chair, the one Margaret bought me for my 60th birthday. Around me, our home of 35 years suddenly felt unfamiliar. Family photos smiled down from every surface. Our wedding day, Margaret's 50th birthday party, Christmas mornings, summer vacations. A lifetime of memories that now felt like lies. I should have confronted her immediately. That's what a rational man would do. Instead, I did something I'd never done in our marriage. I went through her things. Her desk drawer held the usual items. Bills, stamps, reading glasses. But tucked in the back, beneath a stack of thank you cards, I found a thin folder. Inside were bank statements I'd never seen before. A separate account. Monthly withdrawals of $500, sometimes more. The transactions went back 2 years. My heart pounded as I searched further. Hidden in her closet, behind winter coats, I found a shoebox. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to someone named Danny, at a P.O. box in Henderson, Nevada. The return address was ours, but I'd never seen these envelopes before. I opened one with shaking hands. Margaret's handwriting filled the pages, warm and maternal. I know you're trying. I'm so proud of how far you've come. Please don't give up. I believe in you more than you'll ever know. Who was Danny? And what did David Hartley have to do with any of this? That evening, Margaret came home glowing, as she always did after book club. She kissed my cheek, asked about my day, started preparing dinner. I watched her move through our kitchen. This woman I thought I knew completely, and saw a stranger. How was book club? I asked, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. Wonderful. We're reading this marvelous novel about second chances. She smiled at me, that same smile that had captured my heart decades ago. Sometimes people deserve another opportunity to get things right, don't you think? I nodded, unable to speak. That night, I lay awake beside her, listening to her peaceful breathing, wondering how long she'd been lying to me, wondering if our entire marriage had been built on deception. The next morning, while Margaret was in the shower, I booked a flight to Las Vegas. The Venetian lobby was a cathedral of marble and gold, tourists streaming through like pilgrims seeking fortune. I'd arrived Thursday evening, a day before Margaret's reservation began, and checked into a modest room at a different hotel across the strip. I told myself I was being rational, gathering information before jumping to conclusions. But nothing about this was rational. I was a 62-year-old retired high school English teacher playing amateur detective, spying on my own wife. Friday morning, I positioned myself in the Venetian's lobby bar, hidden behind a newspaper and dark sunglasses I'd bought at the airport gift shop. I felt ridiculous and heartbroken in equal measure. The bartender probably thought I was some paranoid husband, which I supposed I was. 3:15 p.m. I saw her. Margaret walked through the entrance like she belonged there, pulling a small suitcase, wearing a blue dress I'd never seen before. She looked radiant, younger somehow. The worry lines that had deepened around her eyes over recent years seemed smoothed away. She was smiling. Not the polite smile she gave to neighbors or the content smile she offered me, but something bigger, fuller of hope. My chest tightened painfully. She approached the check-in desk alone. I watched her laugh at something the clerk said, watched her glance at her phone, watched her look toward the entrance with anticipation that made me want to weep. Then he walked in. I'd imagined David Hartley 1,000 ways during my sleepless night. In my mind, he'd become this silver-haired Casanova, wealthy and charismatic, everything I wasn't. The man who could give my wife romantic Vegas weekends while I did crossword puzzles in our living room. But the man who entered wasn't David Hartley. He was young, late 20s, maybe 30, thin, almost gaunt, with the kind of wary posture that spoke of hard times. He wore jeans and a clean button-down shirt that looked new, like he'd bought it specifically for this trip. His hair was dark like Margaret's, and when he smiled uncertainly in her direction, I saw something in his face that stopped my breath. I saw Margaret, her eyes, her smile, the way she tilted her head. Margaret rushed to him. She didn't embrace him immediately. Instead, she held his shoulders, looked him up and down like she was checking for injuries, and then pulled him into a hug so fierce I could see her shoulders shaking from across the lobby. He held her stiffly at first, then melted into the embrace. His eyes closed. He was crying. So was I, hiding behind my ridiculous newspaper, watching this scene I didn't understand but felt deeply in my bones. They pulled apart, and Margaret wiped his cheeks with her thumbs, the way she used to do with our daughter when she was small. They talked, and though I couldn't hear the words, I could read her body language after nearly 4 decades. She was proud, relieved, overflowing with a joy I hadn't seen in years. Who was this young man? Why was he registered under David Hartley's name? Why had Margaret hidden him from me? I followed them discreetly as they checked in together, as they took their bags toward the elevator. Margaret linked her arm through his, protective, maternal. Before the elevator doors closed, I heard her say clearly, "I'm so glad you agreed to come, sweetheart. This is your celebration. You've earned this." The doors shut, and I stood in the opulent lobby, more confused than ever. That evening, I watched them from a distance in the casino. Margaret didn't gamble. She never had. But she sat beside the young man at a penny slot machine, laughing as he explained something. They had dinner at a modest restaurant, not the fancy one included in the romance package. Over pasta, they talked intensely. Several times, Margaret reached across the table to squeeze his hand, to offer what looked like encouragement. This wasn't an affair. Every instinct I'd honed over 38 years of marriage told me that. But if not an affair, then what? That night, back in my hotel room, I did something I should have done from the start. I called my daughter, Emily. "Dad? Is everything okay? It's late. Emily, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." I took a breath. "Does your mother have a son I don't know about?" The silence on the other end lasted forever. "Dad, where are you?" Emily's voice had gone tight, careful. The same tone she'd used when she was 16 and trying to decide how much trouble the truth would cause. "Las Vegas. Watching your mother with a young man I've never seen before." I stared at the ceiling of my generic hotel room. "Emily, please. I need to understand what's happening." Another long silence. Then, a sigh that seemed to carry years of weight. "I'm going to tell you something Mom made me promise never to tell. And you have to understand. She was trying to protect you." My hand gripped the phone so hard it hurt. "Protect me from what?" "Dad, do you remember when Mom had that miscarriage? Before she got pregnant with me?" I did. We'd been married only a year. Margaret had been devastated, barely spoke for weeks. Eventually, we tried again, and Emily had arrived, perfect and healthy, and we'd never talked about that lost pregnancy again. "That wasn't a miscarriage," Emily said quietly. "She gave the baby up for adoption." She was already pregnant when you two met. The room tilted. I sat down hard on the bed. It was David Hartley's son. They'd broken up badly, and she found out she was pregnant after. She was 22, alone, terrified. She gave the baby up to a couple in Nevada, went to graduate school, met you. She said she buried it so deep that sometimes she could almost forget. But she didn't forget, I whispered. No, she never forgot. Emily's voice cracked. 28 years later, he found her. Danny. He contacted her through one of those DNA ancestry sites. His adoptive parents had died, and he wanted to know where he came from. Danny. The name from the letters. 2 years ago? I asked, thinking of the bank statements. Yes. Mom met him once, and Dad, he was a mess. Drug addiction, in and out of rehab, barely holding on. But he was her son. She couldn't turn her back on him. Why didn't she tell me? The words came out broken. She was ashamed. She thought you'd look at her differently, that you'd feel betrayed that she'd hidden something so huge. And she was scared you'd make her choose between helping Danny and protecting our family. Emily was crying now. Dad. She's been supporting his recovery. Paying for rehab, counseling, job training. That's where the money's been going. I thought of Margaret beside me every night, carrying this alone. Loving a son she'd given away. Fighting to save him while I did crossword puzzles. Oblivious. The Vegas trip? I asked. Danny's been clean for 6 months. It's the longest he's ever made it. Mom wanted to celebrate with him to show him she's proud. She booked it under David Hartley's name because she didn't want you to see the credit card statement and ask questions. She's been planning to tell you, Dad. She just didn't know how. After we hung up, I sat in the dark for hours. I thought about the woman I'd married, the secrets she'd carried, the child she'd mourned in silence. I thought about how I jumped to the worst conclusion, how little faith I'd shown in 38 years of love. But mostly, I thought about Danny, a young man fighting to survive, finally sober enough to accept his birth mother's invitation, probably terrified he'd disappoint her again. The next morning, I made a decision. I found them at breakfast in one of the hotel cafes. Margaret wore casual clothes, her hair pulled back, looking relaxed in a way I rarely saw at home. Danny was picking at French toast, listening as Margaret talked with her hands, animated and alive. I approached slowly, my heart hammering. Margaret saw me first. The color drained from her face. She stood so quickly her chair scraped loudly. Richard. What are you? I know, I said simply. Danny looked between us, confusion and fear crossing his face. He started to stand. I should go. No. I held up my hand. Please sit. I pulled out a chair and sat down. Margaret remained standing, trembling, tears already streaming down her face. I know about Danny, I continued, looking at this young man who had Margaret's eyes. I know he's your son. I know you've been helping him recover. I know you've been carrying this alone. Richard, I'm so sorry, Margaret whispered. I should have told you. I was just so scared. I'm the one who should apologize, I interrupted, for not creating a marriage where you felt safe telling me everything, for not noticing you were hurting, for 38 years of being so comfortable that I stopped really seeing you. The breakfast table had gone silent except for the ambient noise of the cafe. Clinking dishes, murmured conversations, the hiss of espresso machines. Danny sat frozen, his untouched French toast growing cold, watching us like he was witnessing something fragile that might shatter. Margaret finally sank into her chair. Tears tracked down her cheeks, but she made no move to wipe them away. How long have you known? Since Tuesday. The hotel called to confirm the reservation. I reached across the table, found her hand. Her fingers were ice cold. I thought the worst. I flew here to catch you in an affair. A sound escaped her, half laugh, half sob. With my own son? I didn't know about Danny. I glanced at him. Your daughter told me last night. Danny spoke for the first time, his voice rough. Emily knew? Margaret nodded. She figured it out last year. Saw some emails. I made her promise not to tell. She looked at me with raw anguish. I know this is unforgivable, Richard. Lying to you for 2 years. Hiding something this massive. Stop, I said gently. Let me tell you what I see. I took a breath, choosing my words carefully. I see a woman who made an impossibly hard choice at 22, who carried that grief alone, who, when given a second chance, chose courage over comfort, who spent 2 years fighting to save her son while protecting her family. I took our money that I never asked about or paid attention to because I trusted you completely. Trust that was completely justified, as it turns out. I squeezed her hand. Margaret, you weren't having an affair. You were being a mother. Danny cleared his throat. I told her not to help me. Last time I relapsed, I told her to give up on me. His eyes were red-rimmed. I've stolen from her, lied to her, broken every promise I made. I didn't deserve this weekend. I don't deserve any of it. I studied him, this young man who was a stranger and somehow family. I saw the shame he carried, the self-loathing, the disbelief that anyone could love him unconditionally. I'd seen that look before on my students over the years. The ones who'd been told they were worthless so many times they'd started believing it. 6 months sober, I said. It wasn't a question. He nodded warily. That's not nothing. That's everything. I leaned forward. I taught high school for 35 years. You know how many kids came through my classroom fighting battles nobody else could see? Hundreds. And you know what I learned? The ones who make it aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who keep getting up. His jaw clenched. You don't know me. No, I don't. But I'd like to. I looked between him and Margaret. If you'll let me. Margaret's tears fell harder. You mean that? I mean every word. I turned to Danny. I can't replace the father you lost. I won't pretend I'm not angry at myself for missing 2 years of your recovery. But I'm here now if you want me to be. Danny stared at his plate, his shoulders shaking. When he looked up, his face was crumpled with emotion. Why? You don't owe me anything. I'm nothing to you. You're everything to my wife, I said simply. That makes you important to me. And beyond that, Danny, you're fighting one of the hardest battles there is. You showed up here even though you were probably terrified. That takes guts. It takes character. I'm a junkie, he said bitterly. You're a person in recovery, I corrected. There's a difference. A big one. Margaret reached for Danny's hand with her free one. So the three of us formed a chain across the table. I wanted to tell you, Richard. 1,000 times I almost did. But I was so afraid of losing you. You won't lose me. Not over this. I meant it with everything in me. But no more secrets. From either of us. We tell each other everything from now on. Deal? She nodded, unable to speak. We sat there, holding hands across breakfast dishes. 3 people trying to figure out how to be a family. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't easy. But it was real in a way our carefully maintained life back home hadn't been in years. Finally, Danny pulled his hand back, wiping his eyes roughly. I should let you two talk. This was supposed to be Mom's celebration for me. But I'm screwing it up. You're not screwing up anything, I interrupted. But I do have a question. Why is the reservation under David Hartley's name? Danny gave a ghost of a smile. Mom's terrible at espionage. She thought using his credit card would hide the trail. David is. Margaret started. I know. Emily told me. Your ex. He's been helping too, Margaret admitted. When I found Danny, I didn't know what to do. David was the only other person who had a right to know. He's remarried, has kids of his own now, but he wanted to help his son. So the 3 of you have been co-parenting a 28-year-old addict, Danny finished with dark humor. Like the world's weirdest custody arrangement. Despite everything, I laughed. The absurdity of it broke through the tension. Margaret started laughing too, then Danny, and suddenly we were all laughing until we cried, drawing concerned looks from other diners. When we finally caught our breath, I said, So, you have this fancy romantic suite. Seems like a waste not to use it properly. Margaret looked confused. What do you mean? I mean, I'm going to check out of my hotel and move my things here. We're going to spend this weekend together. All three of us. And we're going to start figuring out how to be a family. The romantic suite was absurdly large, with 2 bedrooms, a living area, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the strip. The champagne sat untouched in its bucket. The couple's massage appointments got canceled. Instead, we ordered room service and talked. We talked for hours that first day. Danny told us about his adoptive parents. Good people who'd loved him but struggled when his addiction started in high school. About rehab stays and relapses, about losing jobs and friends, about the day he'd decided to take a DNA test because he wanted to know if addiction ran in his biological family. When the results came back with a half-sister match, Danny said, staring at his hands, I almost didn't reach out. I figured Mom had built a new life. Didn't need her junkie son showing up. Margaret's face crumpled. Don't ever call yourself that. It's what I am. It's what you struggle with, I corrected. It's not who you are. He looked at me skeptically, but I could see the hunger in his eyes. The desperate need to believe someone saw more in him than his addiction. Margaret pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos. I want to show you something. She turned the screen to Danny. This is Emily at your age. See the eyes? The smile? You two could be twins. Danny studied the photo, then looked away. Does she know about me? She knows. She wants to meet you when you're ready. What if I'm never ready? Then we'll wait, Margaret said simply. We've gotten good at waiting. As the sun set over Vegas, painting the suite in gold and orange, we began discussing the harder questions. What happened next? How did we tell our extended family? What did this new configuration of family even look like? I don't want to disrupt your lives, Danny said. You've already done too much. You're not a disruption, I told him. You're an expansion. There's a difference. That night, after Danny had gone to his room, Margaret and I lay in the king bed designed for romance, holding each other in the dark. I thought I'd lost you, she whispered. When I saw you at breakfast, I thought, this is it. This is where 38 years ends. I thought the same thing when I got that phone call. I imagined you with another man, planning to leave me. I kissed her forehead. We both got it wrong. I should have trusted you. I should have been someone you could trust with anything. I pulled back to look at her face in the dim light. Margaret, I've been coasting. For years. Taking you for granted. Assuming we'd always be fine because we'd always been fine. I stopped really seeing you. You see me now. I do. And I see someone braver than I knew. Someone who's been fighting a battle alone because she didn't want to burden me. I traced her cheek. No more. Okay? We fight together from now on. She kissed me then, soft and desperate. And for the first time in years, I felt like we were truly together. The rest of the weekend unfolded in unexpected ways. We didn't see shows or gamble or do any of the Vegas things Margaret had probably planned. Instead, we walked the strip together, the three of us, and just talked. We had meals where Danny told stories about his recovery group, where Margaret admitted how terrifying it had been to watch him struggle, where I asked clumsy questions and tried to learn who this young man was. Sunday afternoon, before we all flew home, Danny to his sober living facility in Henderson, Margaret and me to our house, we sat one more time in the suite. What happens now? Danny asked, voicing what we were all thinking. We figure it out, I said. One day at a time. Isn't that what they say in recovery? He smiled slightly. Yeah, one day at a time. You'll come to dinner next month, Margaret said. It wasn't a question. We'll make it a monthly thing. And I'll keep calling you every Sunday. What about? Danny looked at me. Is this going to be weird? You being there? Probably, I admitted. But weirdness doesn't mean wrongness. We'll figure out our rhythm. On the flight home, Margaret held my hand the entire time. Thank you, she said as we descended into our home city. For not running. For staying. Thank you, I countered. For giving me the chance to be better than I was. The weeks that followed were messy. We told Emily first, who cried and immediately wanted to meet Danny. We told our extended family in careful stages, navigating shock and judgment and unexpected support. Some people didn't understand. Some thought Margaret had betrayed me by keeping the secret. Others thought I was crazy for accepting Danny into our lives. But slowly, carefully, we built something new. Monthly dinners where Emily and Danny learned to be siblings. Phone calls where I asked Danny about his job search and recovery meetings. Moments where Margaret could finally mother both her children openly. 6 months after Vegas, Danny relapsed. Margaret called me from the hospital at 3 a.m., her voice broken. I thought we were past this. I thought he was going to make it. He is going to make it, I told her, pulling on clothes. Because this time he's not doing it alone. I'm coming to the hospital. We'll face this together. And we did. Through Danny's week-long hospital stay, through his return to rehab, through the setback and the slow climb back to sobriety. Margaret didn't carry it alone anymore. Emily helped. I helped. Even David called to check in. A year after Vegas, Danny got his 1-year sober chip. We all went to his meeting to watch him receive it. His awkward patchwork family sitting in folding chairs in a church basement, crying proud tears as he talked about the people who refused to give up on him. Afterward, in the parking lot, Danny hugged Margaret for a long time. Then, hesitantly, he turned to me. "Thanks for not running," he said. I hugged him back. This son I'd found by almost losing my wife. Thanks for letting me stay. That night, back in our home that now held photos of 3 children instead of 1, Margaret and I sat in our familiar places. Me in my leather chair, her on the couch, both of us older and somehow younger than we'd been a year before. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Finding out? Everything changing." I thought about our old life, comfortable and safe and incomplete. I thought about what we had now, messier, harder, infinitely more real. "Not for a second," I said. "You?" She smiled, the full, hopeful smile I'd seen in that Vegas lobby. Not for a second. Outside, the evening settled into night. Inside, our imperfect, hard-won family kept growing, kept healing, kept choosing each other day after difficult day. And that, I'd learned, was what love really meant. Not the easy comfort of routine, but the courage to face truth together, the strength to expand your heart even when it hurt, the wisdom to know that sometimes the best chapters are the ones you never saw coming. 38 years of marriage, and I was still learning. Still discovering the depths of the woman I loved. Still becoming the man she deserved. It was terrifying and beautiful and perfectly, imperfectly ours.